Hello, everyone. I am Professor Alafia Samuels from the University of the West Indies, and we are very pleased to be collaborating with the Jamaica Council of Churches on this Bible Studies series on nutrition and health. Today's session, number 2, is entitled Foods Are Gifts from God. During this session, we will talk about the biblical origins of food, the importance of food, and the level of processing of common foods. In the beginning, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants, seeds, fruits after their kind. On days 5 and 6 of creation, fowls in the air were created, and fauna, land life was created, and fish, water life was created. Also, that every man should eat and drink and enjoy good in all his labor is the gift of God, from Ecclesiastes. So food was originally created by God and is a gift to us. What is food? Food are substances made up from protein, carbohydrate, fat, and other nutrients used in the body for growth, vital processes, and to provide energy. Food is important because it provides energy for our daily activities. It provides nutrients our bodies need to function properly, and it affects our physical, mental, and social health. A well-balanced diet can prolong life, and a poor diet causes sickness, disease, and premature death. So we know that persons who eat a healthy diet live longer and have a lower risk of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers. Also, healthy eating can help people who are already living with chronic diseases to manage these conditions and to prevent complications. A healthy diet contains micronutrients and macronutrients. So what are these micro and macro? With the micronutrients, these are very small chemicals that are given to our body through natural food to help us with some of the processes that we have to have in our body. So, for example, folate is a chemical that is needed, and it helps in the formation of the spinal cord in young children. Iron is needed to create blood. Calcium is needed for your bones, and so on and so forth. So all of these micronutrients play a part in keeping our body functioning well. The macronutrients we know would be like the carbohydrates, the potato and rice and yam and so on, the proteins, fish and chicken and meat, and the fats, which would be like butter and oil. But remember, we also have good fats. So although we say that too much fat is not good for you, there are certain fats that we definitely want you to go towards. Things like ackee, avocado pear, olive oil, fatty fish, and so on. Nuts are good for you. And so we have what we call the food groups in the Caribbean. So we have the staples, which would be your carbohydrates. We talked about them a while ago. In the picture, you can see some examples: sweet potato, cornmeal, oats, rice, of course, banana, yam, dasheen, and so on. These are all staple foods. Then we have fats and oils, which should be used in very small quantities. And then you have vegetables, which really half your plate should be made up of vegetables. Foods from animals, we know are chicken and fish and so on. And then we have the legumes, which are like the beans and peas and so on. And of course, dessert is fruits. What is driving our poor diet? Eating natural, unprocessed, fresh foods. It's good for your health and reduces the risk of disease. But we have switched from that to eating highly processed foods. And here's an example of processed foods and unprocessed foods. The food on the right-hand side is not processed. You know exactly where it's coming from. You know that the callaloo comes out of the ground. You recognize it, you cut it up, cook it, and eat it. When you look on the left side of the page, you see a lot of fatty foods. The cheese on the pizza, the pepperoni, the deep fat fried chicken, the French fries. There's a hot dog in the back there. Have you ever seen how they make hot dogs? We're not even sure that hot dogs are really food. You should check it out on YouTube. What is the adverse and harmful effect of eating all of this junk food, this food that is highly processed, high in sugar, salt, and fat? Well, it causes you to gain weight, especially if you're a child. If you have asthma and allergies, it can cause that to be worse. It causes high blood pressure in many different ways. Because you get obese, you get high blood pressure. Because you eat too much salt, you get high blood pressure. Because you're not eating enough vegetables, you have low potassium, it gives you high blood pressure. Unhealthy eating also increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. If you drink 1 soda per day, your risk is increased by 18%. And unhealthy eating also causes depression, increased irritability, and anxiety. It causes your bad cholesterol to be raised, which causes narrowing and clogging of your blood vessels and increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. It's also associated with certain kinds of cancers. You may have heard recently that they have reduced the age for screening for colon cancer from 50 to 45. And part of the reason is that colon cancer is happening earlier and earlier, especially in people whose diet is full of ultra-processed foods. Don't forget, dental cavities and tooth decay comes from a lot of drinking of the sweet drinks, and then the sugar just lines the teeth and just sits there and just eats out the teeth. You can also have excess acidity, gastric reflux, heartburn, constipation, because these ultra-processed foods don't have any fiber, so there's nothing for the gut to hold on to, so you become constipated. Irritable bowel syndrome is possible, and also the liver might be affected. Highly processed foods, also known as ultra-processed foods, are ready-to-eat foods or drink with too much salt, sugar, and fat, plus several chemicals, and they include sugary drinks, snacks, and fast foods. Unprocessed foods are foods as it would be found in nature. They are highest in nutrient and in fiber. You do some processing for food. Sometimes you can can it, freeze, trim it, preserve it. These foods still contain the essential nutrients, but be careful of added sugar, fat, and salt. The ultra-processed foods now contain very few nutrients and very little fiber. They are usually sourced from corn, soy, or wheat with added fat, and many packaged foods fall into this category. So this table is showing you the type of food that we decide is unprocessed, processed, and then ultra-processed. So you see the unprocessed, as we said, fresh, frozen vegetables, fruits, meats, and fish. Processing culinary ingredients, things you need to cook with, plant oils, okay, you need to use a little of that. Do not dunk your food in a whole pot of oil, the way they do it in the fast food place, because then all that you're eating after that is just the oil. The processed food products, you would have canned, bottled vegetables, salted nuts, smoked fish, and so on. The ultra-processed foods, these should be eaten no more than once a week as a treat. We're talking about French fries, burgers, hot dogs, the cakes, the pastries, breakfast cereals, sugar-sweetened beverages. These foods are not good for us, and we should restrict how much we eat. Don't eat a lot of these foods, please. We know that processed foods are time savers, and we know you're busy. And even though some have been fortified with a few vitamins, mostly they tend to be very high in calories and very high in sugar, salt, and fat. How do I know if it is healthy or unhealthy? Look at the ingredient list. There are a lot of names that are used to disguise some of these products in the list. So for example, sugar. Look and see if you see any of these other names: corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, honey, cane sugar, evaporated cane juice. All of these different words are words for sugar. In salt too, some of us know about MSG, monosodium glutamate, or disodium phosphate. Then the preservatives, oh boy, the ascorbic acid, the sodium benzoate, and all of that stuff. And then they add colors, they add artificial colors. And then there are some chemicals in there that we can't even pronounce the name. And really, do you want to be eating something that you can't even pronounce the name of it? Check the label, make sure you're eating healthy. The nutrition facts label is also important. It tells you how many calories are there. It tells you how many servings in the container. And you need to be looking also at the content. So it will tell you how much fat, cholesterol, sodium, and sugar. And you notice it says total sugar, and then it will tell you how much of the sugar is added sugar. And it says how much of that you should be eating each day. So this particular thing here that we're looking at has added sugar 20%. So we know that you don't have much more sugar to add for the day. So be very careful when you're reading your labels to make sure that you don't go over the recommended amounts to eat each day. You cannot outrun an unhealthy diet. There are some people that would like you to think that if you exercise enough, you can eat anything. That is not true. First of all, what you eat is very important. So you need to be eating good quality food. The second thing is that the amount of exercise you would need to do to burn off some of these things are really very, very significant. So for example, you drink a glass of red wine, you would have to walk for 25 minutes. If you eat some ice cream, you'd have to walk for 52 minutes. So all of these foods that you're eating, you have to consider a balance. What are some of the benefits of buying and eating locally grown foods? Have a discussion in your group and let's talk about it. Love that body. Love the body that God gave you. Treat it right. Thank you.